Hello and welcome to February, and whilst I'm welcoming February, may I say a big welcome to all of the new subscribers that have joined during the month of January. I hope you enjoy what we're going to be doing over the next year. In today's show I'm going to be continuing with my 3 Ps, with my planting, with my planning and with my projects. Under planting today we're going to be looking at putting in some of the fruit trees in the new border that I started in the last show. We are going to be up here on the deck and we're going to be starting off a little herb garden in some pots, and we're going to be planting some seeds in the greenhouse. Also on the projects side of things we're going to be looking at the entranceway between my garden and my neighbour's garden, where we're going to be extending the growing for the vegetable garden. And on the planning side of things we'll be looking at what we should be doing during the course of February. We'll be looking at the plans that I've done for the back garden and sharing that with you. We'll be sorting out our seeds into planting order for the year, and we're going to start on pruning of such things as our roses and buddleias, plants that actually have their flowers on this year's growth. So lots to do during today's show, so let's make a start now. Well, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is, into this little seed tray here, is I'm going to be sowing some parsley seeds. Now they will be for the pots in the herb garden. Now you can plant parsley seeds all year round, but obviously the warmer the soil the better the germination. Now the greenhouse I've been keeping at around about 10 degrees, so it's fairly comfortable and the plants are doing very well in here. Now the parsley seed is a very small seed, so we're going to do a light sprinkling on here, little cover with some more compost, little water in, put it on the shelf for germination. So I'm just going to pop the seeds into my hand, and there are a lot of seeds in a packet, so you need to just thin them out. You don't want them growing too thickly, and I pinch them between my thumb and forefinger, and then I'm just going to do a very light sprinkling across the surface of this compost, and I'm aiming for about 1 seed to 1 square centimetre if I can get it that thinly. If it comes too thick then I can thin it out a little bit, but in here I will probably have around about 50 or 60 plants, and hopefully they will grow nicely and we can put those into some pots for a nice summer display of herbs. And we'll just pop the spare seeds back into the packet, and we'll do another planting of those probably around about March time. So once we've got them in here, we're just going to take some compost and then just thinly spread that over the top of those seeds, nice and lightly. We're only looking really for about the same thickness of compost as the actual size of the seed, so it's a very thin covering of compost. You're only looking for 1 or 2 millimetres to go over the top, and then just lightly spread that in over the surface. Then I've got my spray lance on my water sprayer here. I'll just pump a little bit of pressure into that, and all of the water that I use down here comes from the water butt, so we're not putting any tap water on the plants at all. The water won't be filled up nicely over the course of the winter. Then all we're going to do is we're just going to dampen these in. Now it's very important, once you've given your seeds their initial water, that you do not allow your seed tray or your pots to dry out. You must keep them moist at all times. Once they start germinating, they need that water, and I will keep watering it almost every single day until we get the first proper leaves on the plant. So that's not the first 2 leaves that come through, but the second set of leaves that come on them, and then we can reduce the watering from then on. But this one's going to be ready as soon as I've put my plant label into it. So there's my label, nice and clear with the product, parsley, so I know exactly what I've got inside, and I'll stand that right at the end of the tray. That can go over onto the racking system now, and we'll keep an eye on that over the next couple of weeks for germination. Well, you'll probably remember these pots from last year, and I had these on the patio with some geraniums and a couple of fuchsias and things growing inside. Well, they've all been cleared out and they're overwintering. The geraniums cuttings have been made, and we've got new plants growing from those as well. And I'm going to be reusing these pots this year to plant in a couple of pencil cypress, and they're going to go on the step at the top of the patio as a feature to lead into the garden. So these plants arrived from Yew Garden about a week ago, and over the last 24 hours I've really soaked the pots in water to make sure that when I transplant the pots they're going to not damage the plants at all. What I've also done is I've made an indentation, I'll just show you, in the top, and that's basically the plant pot I've put inside here, so I know that the plant is going to fit nicely in there comfortably for size. So what I've got here, I've got 2 of these pencil cypress, but here is one of them, and these will grow at around about a foot 30 centimeters every 12 months. So getting them at around about, this is probably around about 800 millimeters, 900 millimeters, and it's going to be a good size for growing on in the pots. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap these out of there, and as you can see, plenty of root in here. I'll just loosen that up just a little bit, so that's going to roll around and grow out inside there, and bring that nicely down into there. And I'm going to bring the compost in just around the edge of that, and then I'm going to top the compost off, give it a little bit more of a fill. So I'll just bring that up here, and I may well underplant this with some violas or similar flowering plants for the summer. We'll probably get those into some seed trays in the next few weeks. Mid-February is a pretty good time for sowing those when you're under glass or inside on a windowsill. A little bit more of that into there. So that's nice and firmly down into the soil, and once again we're just going to top that off with a little more water. Make sure the plant is nice and comfortable. One thing I do have to watch with these is obviously I'm going to be moving those up the garden, and I don't want them to be too heavy when I move them. So when I move them outside, probably April time, I will leave them a few days without watering them too much, so they're light enough to move. Plenty of water on here, because being a type of conifer, these really do like a good drink, and they will take up the moisture fairly quickly. So that's planted into there, and I've just got one more to do, and so I'll get that one planted in a second. Just going to move this one now. Well, how about now we go for some colour? Now, colour in the garden is just a joy, and it makes our summers so beautiful. And I've got some rather lovely double freesia bulbs. Now, they're quite a small bulb, about 1 centimetre, and I can see which side the root is and which side the top is. And I'm just going to plant these up into some pots. And so I've already pre-filled the pots with some compost, and I'm just going to take my finger, pop that down around about twice the depth of the bulb, pop the bulb inside and cover it over. And I'm going to do 2 to the smaller pots. I might do 3 to the larger pots and get these coming on lovely. I've got this really old and broken seed tray, which is not much good for anything, corners broken out of it and things, but it's great just for standing my pots in. And I'll be able to label up one pot from the tray, and I'll know that every pot in there is a double freezer. So finger into the side of the compost, bulb down inside, cover it over, and another one the other side of that pot here, and pop that down inside there. And I will continue to do that with these few pots here. Not going to be all of the freezers, so I've got 50 bulbs in a pack from New Garden, and I'm going to be planting out probably only around about 15 of those into these pots. And I'm going to wait a little while, and when the ground warms up a little bit, I'm going to plant some directly into the soil. These are going to be forming a nice drift of colour, and they will come back year after year after year. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they look like in the garden later. Now I think it's time for me to sort out some vegetable seeds and get those planted. Now it's time for me to pop some cabbage seeds into this tray. I've prepared 3 little runs in the top here, around about 1 centimetre deep, and we're just going to thinly sow some small cabbage seeds in there. So let's get some seeds in my hand, put those in there, and just like before, I'm just going to take them between my thumb and forefinger and try and spread these nice and finely into these rows. Want to get them around about 2 centimetres apart if I can. A couple gone down together there, but that's not a problem. Last couple just in there. So once these have germinated and come through to a reasonable size, I'll then thin them, pot them on into individual pots, grow them on here in the greenhouse till they're a reasonable size, around about 5 or 6 inches, and then transplant those into the polytunnel for growing on to harvest. So let me just show you what that looks like in there. You should just be able to make out the cabbage seeds, individual seeds, just here, the little light coloured seeds. There's 3 together there and there, but generally they're all in there nicely. Then all I do now is I just bring in the soil over the top to give them a nice cover up, and again then I will water these in and keep them watered every single day through till their first proper leaves, and then I will reduce the watering to about once every 2 or 3 days, maybe even once a week. That's our spring cabbages all sown. So there's our spring cabbages, watered and labelled, ready to go up onto the growing shelves with all of the other plants. There's a couple of plants that I'm going to take the time to show you in just a second. Peony and a rose. It's a pot rose rather than a bare root, and that's going to be going out into the garden in a few weeks' time. I've got my apple tree up the top of the garden in a pot that's being kept watered, and I'm just waiting for the ground to tidy itself up a little bit, warm up and be a little bit more conducive to planting that pot plant. We are still getting quite a few frosts at the moment, so I'm just keeping that one going inside for a little while before planting that out. So let's have a look first of all at the peony and the rose, and I'll show those to you now. So this here is Peony Sarah Bernhardt, which is growing on nicely. It's planted up to its little crowns here, and that will be going out into the garden later on. And as you can see, with its really delicate pink and beautiful double flower, this will be a great addition to the borders in the garden. I'm sure you agree with me that it looks like a really lovely flower to have. And just behind that we have a Rosa Queen Elizabeth, and that will be going into the rose border. We've got some nice shoots just coming on there, and we're keeping that inside, as I said, just for a little while longer, because the ground is not best suited to planting the pot plant at this moment in time, but a week or so's time and that should be going outside. That picks up the planting for today, and so I'm going to move on to the project side of things now. I will be going up to the top of the garden and show you where I'm going to be putting the herb garden. I have got a couple of pots that I've put there already. I planted some more garlic into one of them. I thought that would be just a nice thing to grow in a pot up there. I've also got some parsley and some rosemary which we bought from the local supermarket for the table, but they were in pots and growing, so I've just popped those into another trough there as an idea of how things are going. So I'll show you that, and it's a nice sunny area where we sit for the summer this year, and it'll be just a good sunny area for those plants to grow. I'll also show you down behind the polytunnel, which is my next major project, which is the important one, which will be putting the gate in between my garden and my next door neighbour's garden in order to extend the vegetable patch. Now, having a look at the size that's going to be available, we should get 5 good sized raised beds in there and a good working area. So looking forward to growing some more produce in there. Again, major project we have going obviously is the garden stream, and I can't do any work on that at the moment because the weather is too cold, and what I've got to be doing is some work with some mortar to finish the wall at the very, very top. Then I can be planting my lovely alpine plants that I've got growing into that area of the wall and get them growing to give me some colour around the head of the stream. I've also got to complete just the top of the bank down one side where it's still got expanded foam, and that's got to be mortared over and have some decorative stone put on just to finish the bank. And then we can plant out the baby lavender plants that I've got along there, which will give it a beautiful natural effect for the summer. So let's get on first of all, and I'll show you the gates that I've made for the fence between my garden and Stuart next time. Here I am right at the very, very bottom of the garden, and this here is the framework for the gate that I have made to go between the two gardens. There is a line across here which is I've still got to cut down, and then once the gate is fitted I'll be covering the side with feather edge so it matches in with the rest of the fence. Now I am now being restricted on doing this by time, because I have to have 2 days off together where the weather is going to be good enough for me to actually do the concreting in of the new posts, because I'm going to need to replace the fence post on this side which are rotted, and then fit a new fence post in on this side here to mount the hinges on the gate. So hopefully in the next 3 to 4 weeks I'm going to have a time slot where I've got 2 days off together, because I think that's how long it's going to take me, and the weather is going to be kind to me as well. So fingers crossed we can get on with this project very, very soon. Well, I'll pop back into the garden office for a moment, and while we're on the subject of projects, this is a little project that I've been working on since November of last year, and that's the building and starting of the Year Gardening website. Now, access to that is available at www.ayeargardening.com. save that one into your browser favourites for me, because when you come onto the website you can now click on a subscribe form, and with that you'll get my monthly e-newsletter with some growing and planting information, details of what's going on in the garden here, and also the opportunity to pick up some special offers in the online store that will be opening mid-February on the website. So lots of exciting things in that project. Now what I've still got to show you today, I'm just going to show you the little bit of the herb garden that is coming on, and I'll explain the plans going forward for March and April, and how things are going to be planning out in the garden going forward. So let's go and have a little look at the pots in the herb garden. Well, welcome back to the deck and what is going to be our little herb garden area. Now when you're planting out your herbs, try and think about where they come from for the type of soil they're going to need. You can't really just bung all of your herbs into a pot because they do have different soil requirements. So I've got some parsley down the bottom growing nicely in a pot here. I've actually got another pot where I'm growing some garlic in, but today I'm going to be planting this little rosemary here. And so rosemary, being a Mediterranean type of herb, requires a more gritty, easy draining compost, which is what I've already prepared in this trough. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to make a little area in here, and this is a mixture of compost and loam and grit, and it's nice homemade compost and it's a lovely condition, and we've got some grit inside there as well just to make life easy. And we'll just take this small plant, we'll place that inside here, and then we'll just fill in nicely around. And what I'll probably do is I'll have another couple of rosemary in here. Oh, smell that, that's lovely. Think of that with your roast lamb on a Sunday. Beautiful. Now we're going to have 4 of these pots, 2 down on the deck, 2 mounted halfway up here on some brackets, and then in between a rather nice tall pot, and I think I might grow some basil or something like that to flower over and cascade around. We're going to have some thyme, we're going to have some sage, so it'll be full of those lovely aromas sitting here on a Sunday afternoon having our tea. What a fantastic thought that is. Roll on summer. Now it's time to leave this, pop back to the garden office, and we'll have a look at the plans that I've actually got for the back garden before we actually go on to a few jobs we've got to do this month. Well, now we're back in the garden office, and this here is the plan for the back garden, for the middle third of the back garden for the coming year. Now most of this is in place already, so we've got the stream here with the footbridge over the garden and this area of grass with the bench. Along the back we've got things like broom, clematis and honeysuckle growing along the hedge, and the woodland border is almost complete up on this side here. This border has been dug out, as is this border here, which is the new one I started last month with the fruit trees going in, and these are the 2 Canary Island palms. And along here we have our soft fruits, our peach tree, strawberries, raspberries, etc. The 2 pots that I planted up earlier in the show with the cypress trees will be going just here. The rhododendron and buddleia here, and underneath where this is all white at the moment, I'm going to be sowing with wildflower seeds to give some colour for this year. In the centre here, this is the alamantia tree that I've already got planted. That's already underplanted with some Dutch irises and some blue irises, and again we'll be putting some more bulbs and seeds around here for summer colour. This will just leave this pale green area, which is the remaining grass, which will just be a walkway around the garden with the grass here. We'll then have our patio is at the top here, and then right at the back here is the decking where the herb garden is. Then at the bottom we have the vegetable garden. So most of that is already done. There's a little bit of tidying and some planting to do, and the extension of this border here is still to be done, and that's one of the little jobs to be done during the month of February. And talking of jobs to be done in the month of February, let's take a look at some of those now. Well, one of the things we must continue to do during the month of February is to keep on top of those borders. Any weeds coming through, we need to make sure we get rid of them, keep the ground clean and start feeding the ground as well. A little bit of fish blood and bone or fertiliser, some natural organic compound dug into the ground, ready for when we put our plants in. It's very important as we're going through this month to make sure that all of our beds are prepared, particularly our vegetable beds where we're going to be putting the plants in. So time to get some black polythene and cover the surface, or use cloches, or if you're going to put up a polytunnel, get it up now, get the ground warm inside so that it's ready to receive the plants. Treat your soil using things like fish blood and bone or fertiliser, compost, any organic material, get it dug in now. So it's a really good time for soil preparation. So February will be a short month as normal. I was going to show you my bare root plants going in. They were slightly delayed and unfortunately won't be here for another week or so. So I will show you those in March. But if your bare root plants are with you now, get them soaked for at least a few hours, ideally overnight, and then get those into the ground, and they will really give you the benefit of that little bit of pre-treatment. So I've just got another couple of little jobs I want to show you outside, which are good for February. Now, one of the other jobs we have for February is cutting back on our flowering shrubs, roses and buddleias in particular, as they flower on this year's growth. Now, this rose has not been cut back for a long time. We've got a lot that is crossing over inside, and where they are going to rub against each other, that can cause damage and disease. So I've got a lot of work to do on this one. These small pieces here, cut back to the buds, and we can see buds that are coming on them. And I'll take this one right out there, and I'm going to work my way down right inside, and where we've got these pieces that are crossing over, we'll take that right back, and will give us a nice chance for growing properly this year. On the buddleia, I just take that back to where we've got two stems growing across. I'm not going to be cutting it right back this year, but give it a nice clean up, because this will flower on new growth for this year. So that's an opportunity for another little job to be done this month. Well, that brings me to the end of this little show. It's been a little bit longer than I had planned, but we had a lot of things to do, and if everything had gone to plan, it would probably have been a little bit longer. But I hope you've enjoyed that little journey through my garden for this month of February. Now, we have covered on the planting sides those lovely Italian cypress going into the pots. I'm really looking forward to putting those out in the garden in about a month's time, and they will really give a key focal point going into the garden. We've been looking at our borders, we've looked at planting seeds and bulbs. It's been quite an interesting time, and don't forget to get those plants pruned that need their winter prune. Over the next couple of weeks it's perfect to do it. Keep an eye out for the winter weather. We are still getting a fair bit of snow throughout the country, and it can damage your evergreen plants, so make sure you clean it off. The only other thing I will say is that I had a communication from a guy early on last year, and he was saying how early I was doing things. Do remember that where I am is a fairly temperate zone, and as you move further north and across various zones, your planting times vary. So do what is right for your area, not necessarily what you read in magazines, newspapers, or see on videos. Do the right thing for where you live, and you'll have some great plants. Well, that's it for today. So I'm just going to leave you by raising a small glass and saying to you, please stay safe, take care, be kind to each other, and happy gardening. Cheers.